Number 9. Victor Cuevas. In 2017, Victor Cuevas was accused of fatally shooting a man outside the Bellatera shopping mall in Richmond. He was subsequently released on a $125,000 bond, but in May of 2021, Cuevas once again found himself in front of a judge. This time it was because his pet Bengal tiger, India, was spotted prowling through a Houston neighborhood. The tiger came face to face with an off-duty Waller County deputy before being pulled away by his owner. As the police arrived at the scene, Cuevas evaded arrest and fled with the 175-pound beast in the back of his SUV. While it's legal to own a tiger in Texas, it can't be held within city limits. Cuevas was arrested, but India remained missing for roughly 8 days. There was significant concern from the public that a tiger was on the loose in Houston. After moving India through various safe houses, Cuevas' wife, Gia, eventually turned him into Houston PD. The tiger was relocated to a wildlife sanctuary in Murchison. Cuevas' initial bond was revoked and a new one was set at $300,000, which he also paid and was once again released from custody pending a trial. Number 8. Alan Bard. In 2019, a Corpus Christi man led the authorities on an unconventional chase as he tried to evade capture in his tractor. 45-year-old Alan Bard had rear-ended a vehicle and then got into a confrontation with the driver. When the police arrived at the scene, an officer approached Bard with the intention of bringing him into custody. It was at that moment that Bard drove off in his John Deere tractor, dragging the officer with him. It was later reported that the officer had sustained injuries to his shoulder. Bard then engaged the police in an hour-long chase. 2 4x4 squad cars trailed him into a field. Another officer then cut off the tractor and held Bard at gunpoint, effectively putting an end to the pursuit. He was removed from the vehicle and detained on charges of evading arrest and aggravated assault of a police officer. Number 7. Brenda Delgado. In 2019, Brenda Delgado was sentenced to life in prison for masterminding the murder of Kendra Hatcher out of jealous rage. In 2015, Delgado's boyfriend, Ricardo Paniagua, ended their relationship after the pair had been seeing each other on and off for several years. Paniagua felt that they'd left things on a positive note, but had no idea of the obsession Delgado harbored towards him. The 33-year-old tracked his whereabouts via the GPS in his phone and routinely monitored his emails and messages. A few months after the breakup, Paniagua met pediatric dentist Kendra Hatcher on an online dating site. Upon learning that Paniagua had flown his new girlfriend out to San Francisco to meet his parents, Delgado's jealousy reached a boiling point, and she made the decision to kill her perceived rival. She enlisted accomplices, 27-year-old Crystal Cortez and Christopher Love, aged 35. Delgado promised them money and drugs through unsubstantiated claims that she had cartel connections. Love acted as the triggerman and Cortez was meant to be the getaway driver. Delgado had told them to cover their tracks by making the killing look like a robbery. On September the 2nd of 2015, Love fatally shot Hatcher in the back of the head in the parking lot of her Dallas apartment complex. A few weeks later, the accomplices were arrested, but by that point, Delgado had fled to Mexico where she had citizenship. She was placed on the FBI's most wanted list with a $100,000 reward for information leading to her capture. After a few months spent in hiding, she was arrested in Mexico and extradited to the US on the condition that capital punishment won't be pursued. Cortez, who testified against the other two, was sentenced to 35 years with parole, while Love was sentenced to death via lethal injection. Number 6. Samantha Lopez. In late May of 2021, a woman was gunned down in San Antonio in front of her young children. At around 7 a.m., Samantha Lopez was getting her daughters ready for school outside MC Belden Apartments. The attacker approached 28-year-old Lopez and shot her once from behind and then again as she lay on the ground. The children, aged 2, 6, and 10, are believed to have witnessed the murder but were unharmed. An unnamed man identified as the woman's estranged husband was brought in for questioning. Lopez had had a protective order against him, and he'd been arrested multiple times for violating it. According to a preliminary investigation, the estranged husband was the main suspect in the shooting, but he hasn't been officially charged at this point in time. Number 5. Charles Albright. Charles Albright was one of the most terrifying serial killers to operate in the state of Texas. Also known as the Eyeball Killer, He was arrested for one murder in 1991, but is strongly suspected to have committed at least another two. In December of 1990, Mary Lou Pratt, a well-known prostitute in Dallas's Oak Cliff neighborhood, was found dead, only clothed in a bra and t-shirt. 33-year-old Pratt had been badly beaten and then shot in the head. A coroner stated that the killer had taken both her eyes after removing them with surgical precision. In February of the following year, 27-year-old Susan Beth Peterson, who was also a prostitute, was found on the same street as Pratt. She'd been shot in her left breast as well as in the back and through the top of her head. The killer had removed both her eyes. In March, the nude body of Shirley Williams was found propped up against a curb near an elementary school. When a medical field agent pulled back her eyelids, he realized her eyes were missing. Like the previous two, she'd been beaten and shot in the head. The authorities were only able to concretely connect Albright to Williams's murder through hair found at the scene that matched his, as the rest of the evidence was deemed circumstantial. Albright was imprisoned at a psychiatric unit in Lubbock, where he died in 2020. Number 4. Cirillo Castillo. In February of 2015, a man was arrested at a barn in Edinburgh on charges of criminal trespass following a suspected intention of copulating with a horse. Oddly enough, it marked the third time that Cirillo Castillo had been brought into custody for such an act. It isn't outright illegal in Texas, but contingent charges can be brought against those engaging in it. In 2012, Castillo spent 270 days in jail for public lewdness for inappropriately touching a horse. In 2013, he got 5 years probation for animal cruelty. Over a similar incident, he sought out the same mare, prompting the owner to install surveillance cameras in her corral. Speaking on the tape recovered from the barn, the sheriff said, "It's not going to go to America's Funniest Videos, that is for sure." In the latest incident, 45-year-old Castillo targeted the same barn as the one in 2013, but a different horse. In the morning of February the 17th, the owner found Castillo in one of the stables. As she went to feed the animals, he'd suffered a broken leg and was unable to move. She immediately recognized him as the man who'd previously been arrested for abusing her horses. Castillo was once again apprehended by the authorities. He claimed that he'd been injured in a car accident and then crawled into the barn for shelter. Yet given his history with horses, investigators determined that he'd most likely been kicked in the leg while trying to mount the animal. He could only be charged on criminal trespass, a Class B misdemeanor, with a maximum of 180 days in jail. Number 3. Murder of Adrian Wells. In 2019, a young man was killed in Dallas in a robbery gone awry. The day after 18-year-old Sydney Whitaker had first met Adrian Wells, aged 21, she called him to meet at his apartment, promising intimate relations. Wells was lured outside, at which point 3 armed robbers forced him back into the apartment, demanding cash. The intruders opened fire upon discovering there were other people at the residence. Wells was fatally shot while a 45-year-old man, whose identity wasn't released, was critically wounded. A witness would report that after hearing the gunshots, he saw Whitaker, who bore a distinctive facial tattoo, running from the area. When asked if she was all right, the teenager replied, no. She then called the police, saying that she had information about Wells's murder but didn't show up at the station after agreeing to an interview. She was eventually arrested and charged with capital murder along with Tyrone Williams and Jeroy Rogers, both in their early 20s. Today's topic was requested by Luca is my dad, Itachi Kun, and Elijah Scott. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Genesis Corneo Alvarado. The murder of Genesis Corneo Alvarado is among the most brutal to have occurred in Texas in recent years. On February the 16th of 2017, the body of a teenager who'd been shot twice at close range was found on Sharpcrest Street in southwest Houston. In March, the body was identified as that of Corneo, who had been reported missing about a month prior. The 15-year-old and another teenager had been kidnapped and held captive by Miguel Alvarez Flores and Diego Hernandez Rivera. The illegal immigrants from El Salvador were self-described Satanists and members of the MS-13 gang. After kidnapping Corneo, they gave her drugs and abused her for a month. The other teenage victim went through the same ordeal and was also forcibly tattooed by Alvarez. She was able to escape and led the authorities back to the men while also giving an account of the circumstances surrounding Corneo's murder. She had reportedly been killed for criticizing a satanic statue nicknamed The Beast, which was at the apartment. Alvarez took offense and, after offering the shrine a cigarette, claimed that it wanted a soul instead. Hernandez confessed to the killing after the pair was arrested. They were each sentenced to 40 years for murder and aggravated kidnapping. During their arraignment, they caused public outcry as they laughed and waved at the cameras. Number 1. Sutherland Springs Church Shooting. On November the 5th of 2017, Devin Patrick Kelly parked his Ford Explorer SUV in the front of the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs and emerged armed with a Ruger AR-556 semi-automatic rifle. Kelly, who was wearing a bulletproof vest and a black face mask with a white skull on it, gunned down 2 people in front of the church. He continued firing on the building where people were attending Sunday service and then entered shouting, "Everybody dies." Kelly walked up and down the center aisle, methodically shooting worshippers in the pews and pausing only to reload his weapon. During the 11-minute spree, he fired more than 700 rounds. He claimed 26 victims and injured 20 others in what would become the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history. Kelly then entered a fire exchange with residents and former NRA shooting instructor Stephen Williford. Also armed with an AR-15 variant, he'd taken cover behind a truck and shot Kelly twice in the leg and in the upper torso, causing him to drop his rifle. Before speeding away in his SUV, Kelly returned fire with a handgun. Williford then entered a pickup truck, driven by a man named Johnny Langendorf, and the two started pursuing Kelly. The men called 911 during the 7-minute chase, in which they reached speeds of up to 95 miles per hour. Kelly eventually slammed into a road sign, crossed a borrow ditch, and came to a stop in a field. The police would find his lifeless body inside the vehicle with 3 gunshot injuries, including a self-inflicted one to the head. In spite of speculation towards his affiliation with various extreme groups, or that the shooting had been motivated by religious prejudice or racism, investigators ultimately attributed it to Kelly's own fragile mental state and a dispute he'd had with his mother-in-law. Thanks for watching. Make sure to click on one of the links on your screen for more videos.